So on today's episode, we talk about e-commerce badassery. We talk about email marketing, customer experience optimization, and your overall strategy. It's a great episode with Jessica Tortilla-Costa you do not want to miss, so do stay tuned. Welcome to the 2X e-commerce podcast show. I'm your host, Kunle Campbell, and this is the podcast dedicated to rapid growth in online retail. So if you're looking to grow metrics such as conversions, average order value, traffic, and ultimately sales, you're tuned into the right show. Now, the episode you're about to listen to is an interview I had with Jessica Tortilla. She is the founder of eCommerce Badassery. It's a phenomenal interview if you are a founder and you're trying to figure out email marketing. Jessica is just the person to look up to in the e-commerce email marketing space, in the sense that she really helps entrepreneurs or e-commerce founders or small e-commerce teams looking to roll their sleeves essentially with the email marketing, just get off the ground in a very, very, very efficient and effective way for just generating lifetime value, just more sales from your existing customers, and how to effectively essentially communicate with people who come onto your database, that is email subscribers or even existing customers who have recently or previously purchased in your store. It's a very interesting conversation. She is down to earth. She's based out in Los Angeles in the US. And she lays it out as is. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, and I'm sure you will enjoy what you're about to listen to. But before I let you go, watch out for commercesl.com. The website will be live, so you could get free tickets and then the premium tickets on the website. The role of speakers in this one is going to be incredible. It's our first virtual conference, 60 speakers, a ton of keynotes, as well as expert panels, all with a focus on Q4 growth. It is just something you do not want to miss. I'll leave it in the show notes. It's a very, very, very important. So if you're running an e-commerce team, if you're a founder, if you're a marketer, this is for you. We have a roll of speakers. We have a ton. I'm not going to spill the beans too much. Go check the website out. In the meantime, enjoy this episode, and I'd like to welcome our new sponsors, Gorgeous. So Gorgeous, if you don't know what they do and who they are a customer happiness platform for Shopify and I think a few other platforms now. I've had 2 people come from Gorgeous on this podcast. It is the gold standard when it comes to managing customer experience, managing customer happiness, managing tickets on the Shopify or Shopify platform. So drum roll, enjoy this episode I've had with Jessica Tortilla-Costa, eCommerce Badassery. Enjoy. Thank you. E-commerce podcast. I'm Kunle Campbell, your host, and this is the podcast dedicated to rapid growth in online retail. So if you are looking to grow metrics such as conversions, average order value, repeat customers, traffic, and ultimately sales, you're tuned into the right episode. Now, speaking of which, today I didn't go into any of those babbles. I'm just going straight because I'm super excited to have our guest on. Basically, our guest is Jessica Tortilla. She is pretty much an email badass. Let's put it that way. And that's because her brand is also called eCommerce Badassery, which is a brilliant name. And if we're talking about top names in the e-commerce industry around email marketing, she just comes top. Right? She has been in e-commerce for the last 20 years or so, and she just has a lot of value to share. She's based out in LA. She's 20 years, as I said, 7 figures. She works with 7-figure e-commerce businesses. She's not just an expert in e-commerce. This is why I say she's multidisciplined. We're talking about SEO, web development, and digital marketing. And sometimes when you hire a consultant. You don't want a one-trick pony in that respect, and you really want somebody very diverse, and she brings it to the table. Now today, where Jessica is joining us here on the podcast to talk about email marketing for listeners. Q4 is around the corner, and we're just looking to get these e-commerce tips, email marketing tips, and for e-commerce. And I think I'm babbling too much. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome Jessica to the show. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to talk about this.
Brilliant. I probably haven't articulated your intro, yourself. Could you take a minute or maybe even two to introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been in retail for as long as I can remember. And when I was like 16 and I was able to get a job in a clothing store that I loved, it was like the most exciting day of my life. This is just kind of what I do. And of course, throughout the years, it was really important that I worked my way into the e-commerce space because everything was moving digital and I didn't want to get, left behind. Like this Facebook ads and Instagram and all that stuff was not a thing when I was going to school. So it's just been really insane and amazing to kind of watch what has gone on these last few years. But most recently, I was working for a multi-unit retailer, stores all across the US, started out in their marketing department for their brick and mortar stores. And then we decided to launch e-commerce in-house. And I was the only employee of that business for the first 3 years. And I cried a lot at that job. But I also learned a ton because I worked with some of the most amazing humans and consultants. And I learned so much. And while I loved what I didn't love who I did it for. And I actually started e-commerce badassery by accident from, if you remember, when MailChimp and Shopify broke up. And
yes, I remember.
That was a crazy time. And a lot of e-commerce entrepreneurs just didn't know what to do. So I just started talking to them about Klaviyo, my favorite email marketing platform. And they were like, I'm on Klaviyo and I'm really struggling, or I'm on Klaviyo and my emails are going to junk. Can you help me? And I was like, okay, sure. Let me see what I can do. And after there was 2 initial OG clients, I was like, this is the best job I've ever had. And I remember sitting on the couch with my husband, who is also an entrepreneur. And I've just always, I owned a brick and mortar boutique. So it wasn't like the first time I ever had my own business, but I had really been stuck in that corporate, this is what you do kind of thing. And he was like, yes. So are you going to start a business or what? Because these people obviously need you. And I was like, I think I am going to start a business. So that's actually how this happened. And then, over the last 2 years, what I really realized is there's no one really serving that middle level e-commerce entrepreneur. There's a lot of stuff for the beginner, a lot of stuff for the super advanced, but that, mom who started a business from her kitchen table and is, creating this and building this to support her family, not a lot of people were talking to them. So it was really exciting to be able to teach them. I always say the big girl business stuff of understanding your analytics, how to do SEO, how to really strategize email marketing. And it's been the best job that I've ever had.
That's incredible story. You just that transition from, just being an executive in a corporation to helping people and seeing the impact. I think a lot of our colleagues in corporations, not to take them down or anything, but a lot of the time they find it very difficult actually seeing the effects of their actions. It's not very immediate, and sometimes you need it to be gratifying. You need people to say thank you. You need to see results. You need it to change lives.
Yeah.
And that's what you're doing at Email Badassery. Okay, so in terms of email, just email as a channel, how important, is it? How important is it now in 2021 as compared to other channels? What if you're running a small e-commerce team, 3, maybe 4 people, or you're thinking about just expanding your e-commerce team, would you make a hire? Would you make an email, or would you, take it, outsource it? How important does it, just play out in the mix?
Yeah, it is so important. It's always been important, but I think it's even more important now as we start to realize how little control we have over Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and all the other places that we focus on getting traffic and talking to our customers. It was just the other day, I recorded a story on Instagram, right? And I was recording the video right on Instagram, go to post it. It never uploads. I can't download it. I can't do anything. The app just was like not working. And how many times has, Instagram had a glitch and you can't post? Like, you don't have control over these platforms. Things get shut down. Algorithms change. iOS 14 comes along. Like, those emails, right? You get to take those with you forever. That is your owned media. And we can't discount that. Social is so powerful. Paid advertising is still powerful. That stuff's not going to go away. But I like to think of email as the catch-all for everything else. You spend so much time, energy, and effort creating all of this content, spending money on ads. What happens when that user doesn't buy the first time they come to your website? You just lost all of that effort. So if you can get them on your email list where you can nurture them into the purchase and then continue to nurture them beyond and build a long-term loyal customer, email is the best way to do that. And it still gets you $40 for every dollar you spend. So it has the best return.
Absolutely. And you talk a lot about this on your podcast, E-commerce Battery. By the way, I checked out your Instagram yesterday. Amazing, as an amazing work in terms of, how you're consistently, pushing out content that's relevant and useful. So let's get to the basics. I like to get to the basics first. And you talk about the importance of email. Let's talk about email capture. What from your perspective, from your experience, working with clients, working with corporations, what's the best way to acquire or capture emails? And is some certain emails you capture higher value due to where or the context in which you capture the emails?
Yes, 100%. So here's how I don't want you to capture emails is through a giveaway. Because most of the time, those people are just looking for free stuff and they're not going to actually turn into a paying customer. Are there times when giveaways can work? Yes, totally. But don't rely on them. I see a lot of people oh yeah, I did a giveaway and I got 10,000 emails and maybe 5 of those people convert, right? So it's just not worth the time, energy, and effort. But if there's a couple of ways where you are getting really, really qualified leads, and one of those is when you are using your list and the exclusivity of your list for new product launches, for instance. If you have a new collection coming out, or even going into Q4 with Black Friday, Cyber Monday, if you are giving that group of people either early access or an exclusive deal, and getting on your list is the one thing they have to do to get that. Those people are there because they really want what you have to sell. Another really great way to do this is through quizzes. So this works really, really good if you've got a wider assortment of product and the customer needs help figuring out which one is best for them. Skincare is the easiest example to understand here. And then you can just require an email to give them the results. So you're doing something for them while also growing your list. And then the last way that I really like is, and we can talk a little bit about SEO as well, is if you have a blog for your e-commerce business, which I recommend that you do, you can offer some sort of content upgrade to that blog post. Now, you see this a lot in service-based businesses, but it works for product too, as long as you have, that thread where it like perfectly makes sense and is in line with your business. So I think those are the three most valuable ways. And of course, there's always the exchange of a discount, which I know we don't all want to discount our items. We don't want to eat into our margins. And if that's not your brand, that's okay. But I wouldn't worry about training people to wait for a discount just by giving away that beginner, right? You're taking the risk away. You're still a new business. They don't know you. You're just taking away some of the risk. If you do that.
Right. Makes sense. Yeah. Makes sense. Speaking of email capture, what about the spin and giveaways? What about spin to win models? Are you a fan of them, or they tend to convert better? But are you a fan of them?
Yeah. Here, it's so funny. Like, you have to kind of decide. Look, if you are the luxury status of Louis Vuitton, like, you're probably not going to put a spin to win on your site. I get it, but if you are a fun, personal type of brand, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Put it up there and test it. I think, some people have seen the novelty has sort of worn off and it doesn't convert quite as well as it used to. But, everything in e-commerce is a test. Every single thing, because you just don't know. So I think it's worth a shot.
Absolutely. Okay, let's get into Klaviyo. I think for me, why I like Klaviyo is because it's like my eyes, my nose, my ears, in my store. It listens, and from listening, you're then able to create segments. Question is, what top actions, or customer actions should brands pay attention to? Because Klaviyo is there to capture all those, events, essentially, quote unquote. Your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. I also am a Klaviyo fangirl, for sure. You get the most flexibility and functionality for the price point, and it is better than some enterprise platforms that I have used in the past. Just in case anyone listening wasn't sure if Klaviyo was the right one. This is not paid. So, if you think about every step in the journey that your customer takes, you want to speak to them at each one of those steps, right? Because the mindset of that customer, where they are in the buying decision, is different. So and this is a lot of what I do in my business, is set up automations for e-commerce entrepreneurs, because it's amazing how you can get to 7 figures without these. But I promise, if you put them in place, you'll make more revenue. I always, you have the welcome, you have the browse abandonment, the cart abandonment. Well, really on Shopify, it's actually a checkout abandonment. You have your post-purchase, your win back, and then I also do a never purchased. And so those are people who signed up to your list, but 30 days goes by and they still haven't bought anything from you. And that's really the base, the minimum. And then it kind of just depends on your business. Do you have a replenishable product, right? Then you want to remind them about that. If you have a rewards program or a referral program, those are types of things you're going to want to work in there as well.
That is a lot. And it's super interesting. I've been in scenarios where just a shopping cart abandonment, flow was put in, and it just there was an uplift.
Yeah.
So for listeners, what would be your top sort of 3 to just get started and start to see the difference, essentially?
Yes, definitely the abandonment emails for sure. So the checkout abandonment, I think the statistic is 68%, right, of carts are abandoned on e-commerce websites. 68%. That's a lot. you can recover a good portion of that with a checkout abandonment email, because you know what? In most cases, someone just got distracted. Like, they still have every intention to buy, but we're busy humans. So they just need that little nudge and reminder. And you do not need a discount in that first email. FYI, they're going to buy anyway. I also really love the browse abandonment on Klaviyo, and not every platform has this, but that catches them before they even add the product to their cart. And it sounds a little creepy, but remember, these are only people who have already shopped with you. Like, you already have their information, so you have that relationship with them. That one makes a lot of money. And then, can I have 4? I need 4.
Go for it. Go for it.
Then the welcome, right? That is your first impression. So you really want to make sure that you are, warming them up. I like to wine them and dine them before I ask them to do anything for me. And then last would be the post-purchase. Like, just because you got the sale doesn't mean your job is done. And this is beyond just the order confirmation, the shipping confirmation. I really love, for their first purchase, a personal note from the founder. Just say, hey, thank you so much for supporting my small business. And you can figure out what that looks like for you. And that's going to go a long way to remind them that, they're more than just a number to you, that like every sale really counts. Because, and as a smaller business, that is how you stand out. That's what you have over the big guys. They can't create relationships like that.
How do you sort of streamline communication essentially without overlaps or even conflicting messages? You could have like an SMS that's saying 15% off on an abandoned cart, and then email might be saying 25% off because you're working with two experts, or you're doing one yourself and sourcing the rest. So how do you sort of streamline all the messaging? There are lots of new services also I'm seeing, like WhatsApp, marketing automation. There's been Recut, which has been around for a while. But how do we as marketers sort of ensure that everything is streamlined?
Yeah, so I think number one, and you mentioned something really important there, is if you are working with multiple different consultants, you as the CEO or whoever it is that you have managing those people, it is up to them to make sure that those two consultants, that everyone is on the same page and after the same goal. So, having consultants to kind of, drive the strategy and take some of the work off of you or your team, that's amazing. But they're just there to do what they were asked to do. And someone still needs to lead that initiative. So I see a lot of, smaller e-com entrepreneurs, they just kind of lean into the consultant, okay, whatever you're going to say or do. No. Still your business. You have to control that. And that is from many years being the client, because they will, look, not all consultants are crap, but sometimes they unintentionally will bulldoze you a little bit. So you got to kind of manage that. But I also, when it comes to the SMS piece specifically, because it's so funny, the company that I used to work for, they did SMS 10 years ago. It was too soon. People were not into it, right? The world was not ready. But now it is an amazing tool to, communicate with your customers and make revenue. But it's so different than email, right? It's really just a notification versus a relationship building tool. So I didn't always, recommend Klaviyo's SMS, but once they added in that two-way communication where someone could actually message you back and you can answer them, now I say, if you're using Klaviyo for email, use their SMS, because this way you can put those SMS messages in your existing flows, right? So you already know, okay, yes, I sent this email. This person did not open it. So, 12 hours later, let me send them this SMS instead. And I think across all of them, I don't do a lot of the messenger stuff and that automation. I've used Recart before, but generally, people are not going to want to talk to you in all the places. They're going to have a preference, right? Me personally, I hate SMS. I hate it. I am not on any SMS list. Please send me an email instead. And then you're going to have a younger generation that's like, email? Like, I don't use email. What do you mean? Please send me a text message. So I think you need to be really tuned in to your audience and just ask them where they want to be contacted and then lean into that.
Absolutely. And I agree 100%. It's messaging really should be for notifications, and if you view it that way, especially if everything is within a system, that there'll be no overlaps. Essentially, you're looking at a customer in her or his entirety, and it just makes a lot of sense. And I made a comment about 2 years ago when I went for for one of Klaviyo's, they had like a Boston BOS, Klaviyo BOS, I think in 2019 before COVID. And I was speaking to a rep there, to an executive. I was like, you guys would be great. It'd be great if you have your email, along with SMS, along with WhatsApp and all. But we're slowly getting there. Eventually. Okay, so let's talk about campaigns. Campaigns make money. That is the long and short of it. At the same time, they can lead to a lot of unsubscribes if you don't do it well. What are your best practices for campaigns, both in season, if it's a seasonal thing, and off season, when things are slightly slow?
Yeah, absolutely. Couple of things just to sort of set the stage for this conversation is, if you are not showing up in your customer's inbox, your competitor is, right? So you want to make sure that you're always top of mind. And I think that is something that we overthink this email thing a lot. Not every email you send has to be about the hard sell. Doesn't mean it's not going to make you revenue anyway, but that doesn't always have to be the focus. Sometimes it is just being top of mind. So when that customer realizes they need a product like yours, you are the first person that they think of. And, a lot of email marketers, myself included, will kind of relate this to dating, as well. Like, you need to have those conversations and warm up that, that relationship. And if you just ghost them for 2 months, they're gone. Like, they're not sitting around waiting for you. So consistency is really, really important. And when you're trying to figure out, well, how many emails should I send a week? Because that's a question I get all the time. It depends. Generally, the wider your assortment and the bigger your email list, the more emails you can send. But we can kind of talk a little bit more about that. But when it comes to this consistency and expectation, what did you tell them you were going to send them? There are lots of e-commerce companies, they'll send an email every single day, and that's okay, because their subscribers have come to expect that. If all of a sudden they don't get an email, they're going to be like, oh man, they forgot about me. What's going on? Whereas if you're only sending once a week or something like that, and then you just start sending every day, people are going to be like, whoa, what's happening? So start with what you can consistently do. So I just want to set the stage there. And I generally have kind of like a 3-step system of how I create an email marketing calendar. And we can go through that if you want.
Let's do it.
All right, sweet. So I like to sit down and do this quarterly if you can, but if not, 30 days works too. But it's just, business happens in quarters generally, so It's better to just do them all together. But I start off with what are all of my important dates? So these, we'll use Q4 as the example, right? You've got Black Friday, Cyber Monday. You have shipping cutoffs if people want to receive those items in time for Christmas or Hanukkah, whatever holiday they're celebrating. And then, so you've got all those important dates. And put your own dates on there. So if you know that you are traveling or you're trying to spend time with your family, like that may change those cutoff dates, right? Maybe if you do fulfillment in-house, like you need to kind of be prepared for all that, because people have really high expectations during this time, just, you know, as we know. So I start with all of those important dates, and then I'm going to layer in, okay, what am I doing? What do I want to focus on? Do I have a new collection dropping? Am I going live on my social channels? Like, what are all of those things that you're doing to promote your business? And then the last thing is, like, when you've got those holes, like let's say you send 3 emails a week and you're looking through and you have some holes, that's where I'm going to plug in some more evergreen content or some relationship, non-salesy, as I like to call it, content. Mm-hmm. And when you do that, your calendar is going to fill up like way faster than you think. And it's going to be really easy to send, 2 or 3 emails a week. That's usually how I like that. Started.
Yeah, I like mixing your content and social game, your communication game with email. So it feels, a lot more integrated with your approach. Makes a lot of sense. You did talk about the liberty bigger stores or big, stores with more SKUs have to send more often. What, in your opinion, is the threshold in terms of the number of SKUs that, sort of gives them the ability to send emails 2, 3, maybe even 4 times a week?
Yeah, I don't know if there's a specific number, but I think it also relates to, 1, how often people shop with you, but 2, how many customer avatars do you have, right? When you have a large assortment like that, you're likely talking to more people. Maybe you have 3 or 4 main customer avatars. So, you can break down your communication over those groups. So, the company that I used to work for, gosh, we probably had 500 or so SKUs on our website. We had a lot more than that in stores. We were talking to really like 4 or 5 main customer avatars. So the messaging was a little bit different for them, right? And they shopped with us every 3 months on average. So we were sending 3 or 4 emails a week. We had about 250,000 subscribers, something like that, active people who are actually reading our email. That's important that they're active and you're separating those people out. So, and a lot of it too is you just kind of have to test. And I'm all about data. Like, I love data. I want everyone to make data-driven decisions. But there's also a little bit of intuition that goes into it. You kind of have to feel it out as you go, especially during a time like Q4, because everyone is in it and everyone is sending emails and everyone's inbox is filling up, right? And so you really need to watch the data in real time and make some like gut-driven decisions too. So, it kind of depends a little bit on the business and what the customer can tolerate.
So would you sometimes, just send emails on the spot just based on the data you have, with you, immediately, or is everything planned from a campaign standpoint?
Yeah, I start with a plan, but I'm willing to adjust, right? So if I see, for instance, we'll take Black Friday weekend, right? I'm going to do an early access to my VIPs. I'm going to do a kickoff email. I'm going to do a resend to the people who didn't open it the first time. I'm going to do a last chance. I might do an extended, right? Fake extension email or an oops, the code didn't work, something like that. Just a reason to send an email. Yes, that's a thing. Every marketer is faking that. And maybe some other ones peppered in there. But if I see that the response is really good and people are really loving all of the different messaging, because I'm talking about the same thing, but I'm talking about it in different ways. I'm telling different stories. I'm pulling different heartstrings, right? leaning into the emotion and the psychology of why people buy. If they're really digging it, I'm going to send more. Because there's still going to be people who maybe are hesitating to make a buying decision. Maybe they're going to remember, oh, wait, I also need this for this person. I can get it here. So if I see that they're just like, I missed the mark, they're not into it, I really screwed something up, like, I'm not going to lean in more to that. I'm going to adjust and pull back a little bit.
Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. Okay. I was going to ask you a question, but I've kind of forgotten about exactly what I wanted to say. But speaking around just size, well, what about like cadence? No. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I'm flustered today. I'm gonna have to edit this out. I'm totally flustered. It's late here. It's 6:30. What else do I want to ask again? I'm gonna just edit all of this out. I think that's it.
Do you want me to give like some quick tips on how they can do email faster and easier?
Okay. Let me. All right. Okay. So Jessica, what are Yeah, this is it. So what are brands like? Top brands you think are doing email marketing well? One that comes to mind personally is Chubbies. I'm subscribed to them, and they're so clever with subject lines, with the snippets, with even the names they send. It teases that open. So if there was like a swipe file, who should we subscribe to, basically, from your perspective, to learn the fine art of sending campaigns?
Right. This is a great question, and I'm gonna have an answer you may not like. I am not a fan of an email swipe file, because every business and customer and product and customer journey is different, right? Someone could create emails like Chubbies and it won't work, right? It works for Chubbies because that's who they are as a brand at the core, and that is likely what attracts their customer to them. Even, myself as an example, and I'm not an e-commerce brand, but as a service provider and someone who ultimately I'm selling myself, right? And the way that I communicate, the way that I speak, the words that I choose to use, which is honestly some profanity, right? That's going to attract and repel people. And if they are put off by that, then that's okay, because they're not going to want to work with me anyway, because that's just how I talk, right? So I think really what we need to do is understand who our customer is and what's going to resonate with them. But if you really, really, really need to see a good example, I also love Beard Brand, and I love them particularly because they were a content company before they sold a product, right? Eric just wanted to tell people how to take care of their beards, and he was creating YouTube videos, and then the product line came out of that. So they are really amazing at creating content. So I always use them as an example.
Fantastic. Eric has been on the show in the past, and he's what they've done on YouTube, over 1 million subscribers, is nothing short of amazing. It's a pure audience first business, full stop.
Absolutely.
Brilliant stuff. Right. So in terms of like the kind of like three, we talked about the three types of email. We've talked about flows. We've just talked about campaigns, and done a very thorough job at that. The third are like transactional, emails, just order confirmation emails. Do you have any, when you work with clients? Do you jump into these? Do you take control of these transactional emails? Just automatic, boring emails? And if you do, what do you do? What's the first thing you do?
Yeah, so it depends a little bit on the client, honestly. My big goal is that people are able to be self-sufficient after our time together. So, you know, what they're able to handle and their team kind of dictates a little bit of how complicated I make things for them, right? So that part just kind of depends. But really, my main focus there is to just adjust the voice a little bit so it sounds more like the brand. But I like to keep it clear over clever for that stuff, right? Because people just want to know, like, where is my stuff? When am I getting it? Is it actually going to show up in my mailbox? Because raise your hand if you've ever been completely fleeced by a Facebook ad to a Shopify store to you never get the item. And then when you go back to complain, the site doesn't exist anymore. Like, that still happens on the internet. So people are a little weary. But also, and this is specific to the US, I don't know the laws all over the place, but you are allowed to put up to 20% of the content of those transactional emails can be marketing based. So it's a great time to recommend other products, maybe do some cross sells, things like that. But I generally like to do that in a post-purchase flow instead. Because here's the other thing that's really interesting, and I've seen this in the numbers, is even if the customer gets their order confirmation email and they get another email a couple minutes later, like, they're still high and excited from the purchase that they made from you. They're not going to be mad if you send them another email. They're just not. They're going to be like, oh, wait, what else do they have to tell me? And they're going to open it and be all excited. So in that way, you don't have to worry as much.
That's true. That's so true. Just going back to campaigns, you mentioned, frequency, the importance of frequency. And I put this thesis out on Twitter, and I don't know if this is anecdotal purely from my perspective, but because certain brands have sent me so many emails, my second sort of Google is my Gmail, in the sense that if I'm looking, if a brand has sent me emails like forever, and I was never really in that buying mode, and then 2 years after I decide to be in the buying mode, I'll just go into, let's say it's dog collars or something, I'll go into my Gmail and just type out dog collars, because I know, just to remind me of, let's say I forget the brand name, just to remind me, and I pull that out. And then then I start my shopping journey from there. Are there any are there any numbers or any research that backs that thesis on just due to frequency shoppers use their email to search for brands?
Right. So
Gmail?
not that I am aware of, but as a consumer, I do that too, right? Like, I love shoes. Like, if I could buy every shoe, that would make me so happy. So I have brands that do email me every single day. And then when I am like, I'm in a shopping mood right now, I will go search for those emails to see, like, okay, what did I miss, right? So that's definitely true consumer behavior. But depending upon how your email platform reports sales, right? Like with Klaviyo, the default is a 5-day conversion window. So even if someone is using that email to get to your website and make a purchase, Klaviyo is probably not going to tell you that. But Google Analytics will tell you that, right? Because according to Google, that was the last click. So I would really go take a peek, when you're really just trying to get like your email sea legs, take note and keep track of those campaigns and see where you're at. And then periodically go check up on them, because emails have a longer life than you realize. And what's funny is a lot of the time you'll figure this out because of 404s, broken links on your website, they'll start popping up because someone is hitting a link in, a year-old email. So don't forget to redirect things on your website.
Absolutely. Okay, wrapping up, Apple released or just made an announcement quite recently about iOS 15, their upcoming iOS, and the fact that Apple Mail, so just to be very, very specific, not Gmail, but the Apple Mail app specifically, will stop reporting open rates. Now, how devastating is the Apple Mail app to e-commerce? So from a client's perspective, from a data, how much data are we losing here?
Yeah. So when iOS 14 was coming out, right, and all the changes were coming to Facebook ads, my, I don't know, it was probably a little arrogant, right? I was like, oh, see, this is really why you need email. And then a few weeks later, Apple says, hey, iOS 15, we're going to remove email tracking. So you're going to lose open rates and IP addresses. So if location segments are important to you, you got to start collecting first party data. So I think the statistic was somewhere around, 70% or something of Apple iPhone users use the Apple Mail app. I use the Apple Mail app, even though my emails are Gmail emails, because I do not like the Gmail app. So we're going to lose a lot of data, but it's not the email apocalypse. So there's a couple things that you can do to get ready. I think they said, was it September full release or was it September release to developers? I have to go look that up.
It's typically September release. Well, you can look, they normally release their products. The new iPhone is coming in September, which will come with new iOS.
Got it. Okay.
A few days after.
Got it. Okay. So it's coming just in time for Q4, friends. Yay!
Great timing.
I know. So here are some things that you can do. And, you're going to hear a lot of email marketers say, well, open data is a vanity metric anyway. And to an extent, they are right. But open rates tell you, how did your subject line do? What about the day of the week or the time of day? So losing it does matter. Yes, having a high open rate does not always lead to revenue, but there's so many other steps in the journey that could have been the reason why. So what do you do now? You start testing now while you still have the data. If you don't know, does your customer like witty, suggestive subject lines, or do they want it to be straight and to the point? Do they like emojis or do they not like emojis? Do they want to receive emails, at night, in the morning, on Mondays, on Thursdays? Test all of that now while you still have the data. Also, start collecting first party data. For a lot of people, having that IP address and their approximate location is really important. The company that I had, we had 35 stores across the US, but it was only 35, so they were very spread out. I needed those very specific segments, right? If you have a wide assortment of product and maybe you sell winter coats, but you're not going to email people in Southern California about winter coats because we don't need those. So if that's important to you, start collecting that first party data, get it on a manage preferences form, start converting your segment, right? Just sit down with a good old Excel sheet, plop in a location and add it to their customer profile. Ask the customer for as much information as you possibly can because, Apple's the first, but I imagine it's only a matter of time before other services start catching up and doing the same thing. And I would say too, start testing your content inside your email because your click is going to be like that base level data that you're going to be working with now. And yes, you're still going to have that click data, but test now so that by the time this is in place, you already know and you can just hit the ground running and you're going to be so far ahead of the game if you do that.
That's great advice, especially in regards to first party data. There's a lot of work, ahead, but just if you have that head start, as you said, Jessica, you'll be ahead for sure. Yeah. Okay, let's wrap up with 5 tips. It could be more, you could adjust 5, 4, 3 tips for for those people who think they're not doing email effectively from an e-commerce standpoint. What would be your 5 sort of goodbye tips essentially?
Yeah, absolutely. So like I mentioned earlier, most people from what I've seen are overthinking email, right? We're making this way more complicated than it needs to be. So I want you to, number 1, remember that it's a human on the other side of that email address. And when in doubt, speak to them, or come, and when you sit down to create these emails, come from a place of relationship, of put on your customer hat, right? Like take off the CEO hat, just put on the customer hat and just talk to them like a real person. If you are a small business, this goes leaps and bounds. Like it goes such a long way because people really do buy from people. Also, if you're really just stuck and you're just like, you know what, I just don't feel creative, but I've been emailing every Tuesday for the last 6 months and I want to get an email out this Tuesday. Go into your email archive, find an evergreen email so it's not time sensitive, create a new subject line, and resend it. So you can resend it to the new people on your list. You can, if you have a new subject line and you tweak the content, like the messaging a little bit, but maybe the goal of the email is the same, you can even send it to the people who received it the first time because they're not going to remember. No one is paying that close attention to you.
Sure.
And then lastly is, and this is with all your content, email content, social content, just because you said it once doesn't mean that you can't say it again. Like I mentioned, no one's paying that close of attention to you. And some people just need to hear things multiple times before it clicks. Plus, you've got new people coming into your orbit all the time who haven't heard the story of why you started your business, why your product is so awesome, what this business has meant to you. Like, tell those stories and tell them often. And I think when we just kind of like get out of our own way, this becomes so much easier and less stressful.
Yeah, the recurring theme, Jessica, is frequency. And I can't thank you enough for sharing these tips. I actually learned a ton. Stats come out from you like that. Amazing. You've been an incredible guest. For listeners who want to follow you, you do run a podcast, e-commerce badassery. What other platforms? I did mention your Instagram. We'll link up through to all of these in our show notes. But what other channels are you most active in, and how can people get in touch with you and follow you?
Yes, Instagram is definitely where I am most active for sure. Haven't quite made it into TikTok land because I feel old and like I don't know how to make TikToks, but I'm starting with Instagram Reels. I'm trying. So you can definitely find me there.
Works.
Yeah, if you go to eCommerceBadassery.com, that's my website, and just /2x, I have a special gift there for you. But I'm not going to tell you what it is. You got to go there to find out.
We'll link to it. All our links in the show notes will be will be /2x and on eCommerceBadassery.com. Jessica, it's been an absolute pleasure having you. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a ton of fun.